Welcome back to Bold Assumptions Article Roundup. This week's video is on what I would consider a pressing topic today. The article is from Science News Daily, and it has a lot to do with the environmental impacts that we are causing as humans. A huge issue it notes is the accelerating rate of species extinction. They argue that since species are so codependent on one another, if one were to be wiped out or extinct, it causes a ripple effect throughout the whole ecosystem that could hurt many more magnitudes of more species in the process. With this accelerated rate of species being wiped out, you get to a point where it almost could be the point of no return, where it's accelerating so fast that you just can't stop it from happening. Now, luckily, the researchers say that we still have time to reverse these effects, but not much longer at all. The scary fact that this article brings up is human ignorance, in a way, because with these articles coming out, you have so many people who, A, don't know these articles are happening and don't realize that we're running out of time, or B, know we're running out of time but still don't care because they're so caught up in the modern life. In the midst of all this, I argue there's almost like a battle between advancement of technology and just evolution of humans in general and nature. The further we go along this technological advancement, the more we're harming nature. So there's this battle, and you got to figure out what is best to balance. And many people, at least modern people today, they don't see nature as a big of an influence or as important as it should. With this, I feel like the natural things happening are always cast aside. You always have people like, oh, well, it's not happening in my lifetime, so why should I care? And this has happened for years and years and years, to the point where it compounded to where it's happening in our lifetime now. And even when it's happening in our lifetime, people still don't care, and that's the problem. We're always going to have this battle between, big corporations and nature. And big corporations and, capitalism, in a sense, will always win. The thing that sucks most about it, too, is the fact that, the governments, they try to make it, put forth the illusion that they're helping too. There's many different types of ways they do this, and a lot of times through like different bills and legislation. For example, I don't remember word for word what one of these bills was called, but there was one where essentially companies who put out high emissions of CO2, they were limited and restricted, and people thought this was good and fine. The more you read into it, though, you find these loopholes which allow them to basically put out the same emissions they were before. And the way it worked was, I remember my teacher telling me about this, where basically they had these cards, and they were like licenses to put out a certain amount of pollution. And so the bigger companies, the thing was, you could trade and sell these cards between the companies. So the bigger companies would buy cards from smaller companies who didn't need to put out as much emissions as they did. So with all this, you have the illusion of restriction, when in actuality it's all just balancing out to the point where you have some companies are undercutting a tiny bit while other companies are going off a great amount. You're getting the same amount of pollution and put out as you have before. And many people may from the outside see lack of biodiversity as such a non-issue. It's an issue where people think, oh, well, who cares if we don't have 50,000 different types of fish? As long as we have a fish, we're fine. The problem with this that people neglect to realize, which was touched on in the article, is the fact that this biodiversity serves as a safety net. As paraphrased in my interpretation of the article, the safety net basically means that, okay, let's pretend that a huge pandemic comes by and wipes out a huge group of fish. Let's pretend like one specific breed got wiped out. Well, the good thing is you have, biodiversity, to the fact where different types of fish have different types of genomes, which cause different types of susceptibilities to different diseases. With all this, one disease won't wipe out every single fish on the planet. It will only wipe out maybe one specific species. An example of this, which is even more relevant and actually happened in real life, was with bananas a long time ago. I think it was the 80s, but I'm not sure. Basically what happened was, as we've gone along with GMOs and editing different types of plants, we made bananas to a way where they were bigger and sweeter, and that's just how people liked them. With this, it eventually evolved to the point where there was no biodiversity whatsoever within bananas. Every single banana, for the most part, was genetically the same. So then, one day, a huge banana disease outbreak swept through, and it threatened to wipe out every single banana on the planet, to the point where we would have no more bananas whatsoever. Luckily, scientists worked against this, and they, took a bunch of banana samples, messed around with some of their genome, and made a new banana. This is why, bananas from a long time ago don't taste like how they do now. They're completely different. So with this, it almost highlights the fact that if we have no biodiversity, we have nothing to lean on. We have no safety net, as they quoted, to catch us and keep us there. Luckily with the bananas, we were able to, change enough in time, but with humans, I really don't know if we could do that in time. So and not even just humans, just species in general. There's so many species we rely on, and if we let biodiversity just go out the window and you have just one specific type of species, you can see where problems will arise. Obviously, there still is biodiversity in nature. What this article is showing, though, is the fact that, at an accelerating rate, species are dying out and we're losing that biodiversity. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but years and years and years from now, we will get to the point, if we don't change the way we are, where there is no biodiversity. The scary thing about this change of biodiversity is the fact that all of the major factors which lead to it are caused by us. The researchers cite changes in land and sea use, pollution, introduction of alien species, meaning taking one species and putting it somewhere it shouldn't be, exploitation of organisms, many other human-caused elements is the reason why these species are losing diversity. As we move forward as a species, I feel like we have to focus more on longevity rather than just short-term gains. Everyone's always so caught up in the fact that, okay, I only care about myself. It's the selfish, aspect of human nature. It's just instilled in us. And this trait of selfishness, it has taken us to the point we are today. I will give you that. I will give that benefit of the doubt to everybody. Because the fact that, through our years of evolution, to be selfish meant, you were territorial, you gained more land, you had more, food, all this stuff. And it's many animals are selfish in this aspect. Lions will fight over the prey with other lions. Wolves will try and become the leader of the pack and fight over that. And it's just that selfish instinct which drove evolution. The thing is, though, I feel like there's a limit on that. I feel like there's a peak where the selfishness of any species can get too out of hand. I feel like when it gets to the point where you're hindering the evolution of other species, that's when the selfishness has probably gone too far. And it's when that becomes, detrimental to everybody. You in that aspect, by, not caring whatsoever for the other species, you're harming yourself, because the thing about us is we fail to realize how dependent we really are on all these other things. Like, bees are dying out and no one really realizes it, but if you stop and look for a second, bees are doing a huge brunt force of almost everything we need. They're pollinating all these different plants and stuff, which indirectly feed what we need, and, feed the food that we eat. Like, we're so codependent on these species, but we're so quick to just brush them aside and not care for them. If you think about it, what really brought us to the point we are too is when we started to realize, the importance of farming. When humans finally realized, okay, I don't need to just constantly be out hunting, maybe I can grow my food, herd my food, stuff like that. That's when we, evolved. The thing is, if you think about it in a metaphorical sense, we need to also cultivate our life that we eat. We can't eat it in excess. We can't, do all these things which are harming the life, because we need this diversity of life to keep us up. So I feel like our next step in evolution in that sense would be, we need to cultivate all life in order for us to advance even further. What I mean by this is, rather than, farming the meat now, maybe we need to get to the point where we're allowing for this meat, I'm calling it meat, but these animals, these food, all of our energy sources, we need to, allow them room to grow. We need to let longevity of them correlate to longevity of us. And that's what people fail to realize is, okay, we're having a huge global food shortage within the next 50 to 100 years. Because, our population is growing at a huge rate, and food rates and all these biodiversity, all these things are factoring in to make food proportionally get lower to the rate of humans. So with this, we need to start thinking of solutions soon. And I feel like a huge factor in all this too to mention is the fact that people think that one small impact they make doesn't affect anything. People are so quick to be like, oh, well, this one plastic straw I save isn't going to change anything. And it's so cliche, but obviously everything compounds. And a huge evidence of that is, the changes that are happening in the world right now. If you think about it, okay, this lack of biodiversity, it's been made subtly by these small changes over a course of time. That in itself should be evidence of why you need to reverse it, chipping away small things at a time. Obviously, no drastic change can happen anytime soon by anybody, but if you keep chipping away at the problem, maybe you could solve it. Obviously, another huge factor in all this, which is a huge problem, is our overpopulation. What people fail to realize is, okay, many species have a cap on how much they can have themselves at one period of time. For example, like, there's only going to be a set amount of bunny rabbits in your, area, because there's a limit on how much food they have, how much space they have, and all this stuff. So they kind of just get to a point where they level off. And a lot of times it happens through disease, death, all that stuff. So the thing is, with modern medicine, it's almost prevented this because, rather than just kind of dwindling off and elevating or leveling off at a certain point, we, pushed through that point and we broke it tenfold to the point where, we're just steadily increasing how much of us there are. But the thing is, there's not an increase in the other species. So we're increasing and we're doing fine, keep going up. But there's still so many other species out there which have their caps, their natural caps of how much they can have. I think it's called excess capacity. So when you get to this point, we're obviously going to get to the point where we run out of food, run out of energy. So I think obviously we need to start thinking of this. Maybe, a possible solution could be working on increasing the excess caps of other species, maybe decreasing our excess cap. Whatever it may be, we really need to act soon. At the end of the day, most of these problems are caused by global warming and pollution. As much as people want to neglect the fact that global warming and pollution are problems, they really are out there, and it really is caused by ourselves. Drawing back on the article, obviously they said we still have time. So this is almost like our final wake-up call. Like, I've heard so many things this year alone about scientists saying, we need to act now, and it's urgent. It's almost like it needs to be a national emergency that we need to act. Like, people don't realize they're getting all these signs thrown at them, but they just don't care. And that's the thing. It's like science is so quick to be just thrown and swept under the rug, and all these articles are kind of just slipping by, and no one's making a big deal with them. These should be on the news. These should be out there. Like, this is actually genuinely a problem that's going to happen in our lifetime. No matter what happens, at the end of the day, all I'm saying is just think about the bigger picture, focus on our life, and not even just our life, but other life. We're very dependent on other species more so than anybody realizes. Anyways, it's been Bold Assumptions, article Roundup, my opinion.